Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Wei Chun. And good afternoon to the rest of the speakers as well. Thank you, participants, for joining us this afternoon. I'm glad and happy to be given a chance to speak a little bit about what I've learned and then grown to love, appreciate this idea of networking. And we only have less than 20 minutes. I want to ask if you have any questions, please think about them because I'll look to answering your questions towards the end. Along the way, we may have a chance to interact if you want to put something up on the chat. Okay, here we go. Smart networking for winning connections. So learning points for today, I want to just open up your mind that there's a real world of networking out there, So I'll give you some definitions and tell you there are a lot of things that we have understanding of networking that we're not aware of. And I want to tell you the benefits and the power of networking for your career or business. Second is the misconceptions of networking. And the third, the three elements or the three elements of purposeful networking. Yeah, the three N's. Yeah, so Wing Chun, as I mentioned, what I've done, and I actually started networking organization in 1999, and I won't go tell my story that far back, but in 2013 I started INA. It's a community of introverts, and online we have about 5,000 members of friends here. And in 2019, I started this partnership where I work with and collaborate with trainers and consultants and coaches for us to provide assistance, guidance to introverts who want to impact the marketplace, at work and society. So what does networking mean to you? And someone told me that because we've all gone online, networking face-to-face is no more useful. So I believe they are not totally correct because we do have opportunities to meet up with people, especially when the restrictions are lifted. I will mention a little bit about this online and virtual networking, but the thing that comes to mind will be business, will be about collaborations, will be about connections and contacts, And what's common among all this is people. And speaking as an introvert myself, it takes a lot for the introvert to connect with people. And so I will talk a little bit about the introverts during my presentation. So the question I have is this true or false? It's not what you know, but who you know, right? It's false. A lot of people think that it's just what you know. That's all you need to have when it comes to networking, but it's not true. You really need to know the people well, and they need to know you well as well. So what counts in networking is a relationship and understanding of the people within your network. I want to tell you how you can step out. If let's say, I know some of you may be new to networking and some of you are probably familiar, already practicing. And I suspect some of you probably have an understanding of networking that I hope to go a little bit deeper so that you can really make the most of the interaction and connection with people. So let me start off with this thing I call networking arenas. So you have these casual and structured networks meetings. They may be meeting once a month, they may be meeting once a week, and some are casual, just have coffee, and sometimes it's recreational, and some are very structured. They're very organized. They have leadership in place. And of course, there's the business networking meetings as well. Online is getting more popular now. And so people are joining different groups. You have Meetup, you have Facebook groups, for example, and now LinkedIn has got groups as well. And so these are places where you connect people online. And then there are small groups and large ones. And large ones, I mean, for example, conferences, trade shows, you can meet many as 200, 1,000 people if you attend a trade show for a few days. Then there are small meetups, anything from 5 to 10, 15. So depending on yourself, some people find that 25 is a large gathering, right? For myself, I attended large conferences, of course, and the biggest one, I think, not counting the trade shows, will be a conference in the US where I get the chance to meet with some, not all, of about 700, 800 attendees. So can you imagine not being prepared before attending such sessions? So let me talk about a few misconceptions about networking. Some people think that it's just talking, just meeting people, and it cannot be learned. I am a living testimony that I started the networking organization in 1999, not knowing anything about networking. And then, of course, I had lots to catch up. I read a lot of books, and we didn't have the advantage of the internet then, all the information and Google and what have you. So I had to read a lot of books. And yes, I went to NLB. I went to the library a lot to borrow books, and I think I read about 25, 30 books in 6 months, And I wanted to understand networking, and I moved from understanding, appreciating networking to teaching networking, and from there, teaching people how to network and teaching trainers how to teach people how to network. So in networking, it's not just talking to people because there is a two-way conversation. Yeah, sometimes if we are not prepared, we will have a conversation and say, oh, I can't wait to exit this conversation because the other person is talking too much. And so there is a preparation, mental preparation. Come with questions, come prepared before attending the networking event, depending on whether it can be anything from 20, 25 people, 50, 70, what have you. So cannot be learned, not true, because I learned, and we can read a lot of materials online now, lots of books, ebooks, what have you, and we can pick up networking. And I'll show you a definition of what I think networking is. The second misconception is that you attend networking events and then it's just to collect as many cards as you can to pitch, to sell, promote your service to as many people as possible. These two actions or behavior is what I call a networking turn off. Yeah, and I've met a lot of these, there are two kinds of card carriers, they are either card collectors or they card pushers. So there are some who meet people and they say, no, I'm not talking to you. I'm just pushing a card into your hand, and then they move on. And their objective is to meet as many people as possible. And so as many people having their name cards as possible, or maybe they even give them a catalog or a leaflet, for example. So that is really a turn off. When you spot these people, turn away, avoid talking to them because they are there to prospect or to sell. So networking isn't prospecting, all right? And I even teach and train sales people and tell them when you are prospecting, it's very different for networking because you're really building relationships. And you can build relationships with your clients because they will refer you business as well. So there's a lot to it than they have been taught or trained. So I like this idea that networking is not just a network of people or contacts, or how many names you have in your database or your smartphone, but it's really networks of relationships. So this is very important. When we establish these relationships, there is a dependable network around us who can support us in our career or our business. The third misconception is that only the outgoing and the extroverted personalities are better at networking. That's totally not true because if you're introverted and you can train and nurture yourself, that means bring out whatever strengths you have within you. For example, listening skills, and really observing people. You can establish good connections with others. And you don't have to be the loudest in the room, and you don't have to be the person that's most outgoing to attract the people. In fact, Sometimes if you're really loud and talkative, you will notice that some of these people will just move away from you. So these are things to look out for. That is misconceptions in networking. Let me put this question to you. Who will you hire? You've been tasked to hire someone for a position in your company in the accounts department. Which of these will be the best option for you? If you can put it in your chat, just answer this question. I have 4 options for you, okay? Which is the best option for you? 1, your cousin currently working in the same capacity, doing accounts. 2, a person answers an advertisement that you placed for the company. There's an opening. Your colleague or your co-worker has a sister who is ideal for the job. And the 4th one, someone in your own company is interested in that opening, in that position. Can you just put it out there? Which one would you pick? Number 1, 2, 3, 4? If you are in charge, okay, I see 4, I see 3, that's good. Anyone else? No wrong answers here? Okay. Thank you for your response. Okay, that's good. You know, although I'm introvert, I actually like to see faces, but this is a webinar style, so I just have to depend on this chat. So thank you very much for the response. So most of us have put down the answer as 4. We picked 4 because it is someone who is familiar with the company and how they run, how they operate. And so most people will pick number 4. Now, if you notice that 1 out of 4 of these options, which is the advertisement, will be, it is the statistic that we have. 75%, okay, the experts tell us 75% of all jobs are found through networking. So if I put there 4, that means 1, 3, and 4 are recommendations, isn't it? So these are people in your company, it's your colleague, or you know, your colleague has a sister and your cousin. So these are people you know. And so if you are the HR manager, there's a higher chance you want to depend on these people that you know. Because advertisement, you have to go through the interview process. So that is really true. Networking is the one that gets you the job that you are seeking. So we have to tap on this. Thank you for the response. Okay, so here I'm just going to put up on the slide. You can have a screenshot if you like. So through purposeful and consistent networking, these are the things you stand to gain. You have access to sources of inspiration, job recommendations, as I mentioned just now. And I like this one, of course, leads and better referrals, qualified referrals. It's not just leads. Hard to reach people. It's knowing one person to get to another. And so these are things, the benefits you stand to gain if you are networking purposefully, consistently, and strategically. And it really helps with your career plans. And especially during this time, we know a lot of people have challenges with their jobs. And so when they have been networking consistently this past few years, it's easier for them to make inquiry and say, oh, you know, I'm in the job market. Do you know someone or company that might be looking for that has an opening for me? So these are people you need to keep in touch with. So you never know when these people will open the doors for you, right? So I ask you, does any of these statements describe you? I can't hold a conversation. I find it tiring to be around lots of people and find it a waste of time to participate in networking. Do you find it, yeah, yes or no? Can you put it in the chat, yes or no? Does any of these statements describe you? Anyone? Oh, okay. I see. Yes, no, that's good. So a lot of people have challenges, not just holding a conversation. They have challenges initiating conversations. And it's often the introverts who have these challenges. And that is really why I want to help them get out there, connect people, so that they can benefit from networking. So let me talk about the three ends of purposeful networking. The first one is a nature, about yourself and self-awareness. It's important you know your strength, your competencies, your talents, your gifts, your experience. And when those are the things I mentioned, you probably have that written up in your CV, right? But more than that, when you have the interviews and we are asking people for job recommendations, if you know what your strengths and competencies are, you stand a better chance of being recommended. All right. So, and one of the things I want to tell you is that if you're introverted, embrace it. I know some introverts, when I ask them, hey, are you introvert? Oh, I'm an introvert. I wish I wasn't. That's because there's a lot of negative things out there going against introverts, And so I found that if you can just nurture whatever you have, your introverted traits, you can do well in networking. So I've mentioned this, know your strength, know your weakness. So first one is nature. So let me talk about the mindset and attitude. So you yourself have to be convinced that networking is powerful, potentially useful for you, for your career or work or business. You have to give first, and I've been in the networking business for more than 2 decades. And there's a lot of what we call hunters out there. They just want you to help them. They want you to buy their stuff. They want you to recommend people. They're not they say they want to value add, but they are actually looking for customers. So you want to enter into any relationship, give first. When I say give, I don't just mean money. Give a contact, recommend something, offer something useful, send an article. And so this is how you establish connections with people. Ask for help. Don't be afraid. I've met a lot of successful people out there who say that if only they had asked me for assistance, and we can understand. We hold back because we're not sure whether we will be turned down. And so I want to tell you and assure you that there are successful people are more happy to help you than you think, right? So don't be afraid to ask. So yes, now it's the second one. The second end is about nurture. It's about training and equipping yourself, so you can learn from others. You can learn how to network, and you can learn how they become successful in their jobs or in their career. So don't just make friends with people in your own departments. Go inter-department and make friends with so that you have a diversity of knowledge. And that will be hold you in good stead. Train yourself. You need to attend training, attend workshops, whatever learning opportunities out there. Maybe I just drop a promotion for Skills Future. There's a lot out there, that the government has provided us the means, to pay partially, for us to attend training. Prepare well. When you attend a networking event, you have to prepare before you attend. For example, if you attend a networking event, you have a message or story to tell, isn't it? So if you didn't prepare this message, how are they going to know how they can help you? How are they going to know what you need, right? So prepare your self-introductions, prepare and research on the networking event. Who are the people there? You see, when you research on the event and the organizers, you will have better conversations. I would say smart networking, because then you make great conversation with people. So you need to research, and find out so that you will ask great questions as well. All right, the third one is network. You notice that there's WORK in capital letters. It takes a lot of effort in networking. It doesn't just come just like that, and you have to reach out to people. I've said this very often. Sometimes we say an individual comes up in social media. He says, "Oh, I've got 5,000 friends on Facebook." My question to him is, "So what? How well do they know you?" "Oh, I've got 10,000 people. I have contacts on LinkedIn." My question to them is, "So what? How well do they know you?" Right? So you will have to reach out to people and start the relationship building with them. So it's a lot of work, a lot of effort. Yeah. So if I may mention a story where I started in networking organization, not knowing many people because I didn't really network. And at one point, went from near zero to about 7,000 people that I actually met, shook hands with, talked to, over a period of 3 years. So I thought that was a lot of hard work. It really takes a lot of effort in networking. And you have to stay connected with people, Don't knock on their door or only when you need help, right? Stay in touch. If you haven't been in touch with them for a year, you'll have to make what we call a reconnection, right? Reconnection. So be useful, be helpful to others. Yeah. So all these are positive things that you're sending out to this context of connection. So your objective here is actually the networking process to move you from context to connections to contracts, right? So don't jump the gun and think that you can get the profits or the gain without building the relationships. And do things so that you be top of mind of people. And those in the sales, for example, for example, real estate and financial advisors, they have to do a lot more so that they'll be on top of mind of the people that they know, because we all know many financial advisors, right? So what gives you the right to the referral, to the business when the time comes. Okay. Okay. I hope that wasn't too rushed. Do you have any questions?
Thank you very much, Mervyn, for
Yeah.
sharing.
Okay.
Yes, indeed, I think there's this our dear participant
Yes.
Victor. He has a very good question.
Mm-hmm.
So, how does your three N will differ from each other? The different cohort. One is the introvert, and one is the extrovert type of networking people.
Okay. Is that the one by Victor he
Yes,
mentioned? Yeah. So
correct.
he asked if there's a difference between introvert and extrovert networking. There is a difference because there is a perception that those who are actively networking out there, they are usually seen to be extroverted. And even for myself, although I'm core introvert, when I'm networking, some of these people, when I talk or when I meet and have conversation with them, they'll think I'm extroverted. So the introvert can appear extroverted when it comes to having conversations. So of course, you will notice who the introverts are, because they are likely the ones who will be by themselves, or they'll be at one corner of the room, while the extroverts will likely be the ones going from table to table, person to person, initiating conversations. So the difference between someone like me, an adapted introvert, and an introvert who has not been trained, is that if I'm not trained, I will wait for someone to come and speak to me. Whereas if I'm adapted and I know I want to make great conversations, I want to connect with this person or that person because I know who they are, I want to know them better, I will initiate the conversations. Yes. So those are essentially the obvious difference you can see between the two kinds of personalities in networking. I hope that helps.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Yeah. There's another one.
Any question from the floor? Any more,
I saw
ladies?
one here.
Yes.
Introverts, yeah, a misunderstood group. Why are introverts shy of admitting that they are so? Okay, there are two parts there. First, they are definitely a misunderstood group, which is the reason why I started INA, right? And there's also a misconception that Asians are more introverted than our Western counterparts. So that's why I intentionally call it Introverts Network Asia. Yeah. And why introverts shy? This part I want to make a distinction. Not all introverts are shy, and not all are there are even extroverts who are shy when it comes to making conversation with people. So the key marker of an introvert is how you recharge. Yeah. After talking to people, whether one to one or one to many, one to a group, you want to be by yourself and then process the conversations, the meetings you just had. Whereas the extrovert will be the one energized from the socializing. And so the more people they meet, the more energized they are. Yeah. So yeah. So that's That's the answer to that question. Is there one more here? Which group most successful? Oh, I don't think you can measure what one is successful or more than the other. The perception is that they think the friendlier one will be better at networking. And I'm giving you examples of the misconceptions and the um, networking turnoff. You see, when you're outgoing, sure, you're going around meeting what they call work the room, when you're talking to lots of people, handshake, and then you talk about your products and your company. Does that make you successful? Yeah, more people know you, but do they respect or like what you do or represent? So we can't measure the benefits of both. What I can say, if you're introverted, you can find ways to network better, more effectively. Yeah,
Thank you very much, Mervyn.
yeah.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, there are many questions coming in, but in view of time, I think let's move on to the second speaker first, and we will try to take the question at a later stage. Okay, yes, our second speaker is Miss Caroline Street, the Director, Therapist Coach of Holistic Coach Singapore. Ms. Street began volunteering with Age Concern in the UK, United Kingdom, while studying for her bachelor degree in social policy. As a polytechnic lecturer, she worked on gerontological management studies diploma and taught public speaking. Her work now as a therapist and coach includes helping older clients find their voices and gain and appreciate so as to enjoy new skills and activities. So let us learn the skills on how to find our authentic voice and confidence from Miss Caroline Street. Caroline, over to you, please. Caroline, I think you need to turn on your mic. Yes. Thank you.
Coming up. Thank you
Yep.
for the reminder. I appreciate it. So thank you, Wei Chun. I really appreciate that introduction. And let me just click here that's in the way. Fantastic. A very good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to call you the time of your lifers, or lifers for short. That's just a fun introduction. And yes, my name is Caroline, and my mnemonic, or my motto rather, not mnemonic, is that public speaking can be the most enriching and enhancing and life enhancing thing that you can do, right? Because it helps you to get to know people, people get to know you, and then networking will happen on its own. Okay, so thank you very much to the previous speaker. That was very, very enlightening. And I've done a great deal of research also into introversion and extroversion in terms of public speaking. So I'll be covering a little bit of that here. Just to say, to start with, my book called Anxiety and Us is newly out. And if you'd like to find out more about anxiety in terms of public speaking or any other occasion, that might be one for you to look at. My first question I'd like to start with is, for those of you around the same age as myself, who might remember the song that goes, I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. I'm not going to ask you to put your hands up because that would be silly, because I think most of you have got your videos off. But how many of you remember that song? Okay. And I'd like you to put in the chat box, please, whether you do recall that song and any idea why I would ask that question. So the reason why I asked that question is maybe self-explanatory. Thank you very much for all the yeses. Yes, you do recall. Fantastic. Even though I sang it and probably doesn't sound anything like the original, but I'm still working on it. Is what would you like to do if you had the world's attention for 10 minutes, 20 minutes like I've got, or just 2 or 3 minutes? It was, thank you, Felix. Can we give Felix a prize of sorts? Yes, it was used in the Coca-Cola advertisement, and it's by the Seekers. Absolutely right. Yes, in the 70s, Felix. It was released in 1971. Excellent. So thank you so much for that participation. Really appreciate it. Let's keep that going. Thank you so much. Now, if you had the world's attention for the 2 to 20 minutes, say, what is it that you would like to talk about? What's your message? Okay, and that's one that's going around the internet at the moment. It's quite fascinating. And if you did have the world's attention for 20 minutes and you had something to say, let's see, how many of you would have something to say immediately that you'd want to share? Okay, for me, it's definitely be happy. Thank you, Shirley. Lovely. Be happy, absolutely. And perhaps we could talk about ways to be happy. That would be amazing. Thanks, Shirley. So for myself, it's all to do with gaining self-awareness, be active and happy. Thank you, Jenny. And to really enjoy every moment of every day, right? That you kind of make the most of this wonderful life that we've been given. Now, how do we do that when we're expressing ourselves and perhaps when we are not entirely comfortable with doing that? Okay, so I started off the question with asking you, how many of you would have, Bobby McFerrin, don't worry, be happy. That's a great one, and I'll talk about that perhaps later in conjunction with anxiety. Thank you so much, Victor. So yes, how many of you would have something to say, like be active, be happy, enjoy every moment, right? How many of you would not have something to say? Okay. Now, the assumption might be that the extroverts might have something to say, the introverts might not, but I beg to differ because of introverts having more introspection and more reflection, perhaps. And to just speak to that for a second, extroverts are not necessarily better speakers or better at approaching people, purely because we also have what we call extroverts guilt. And that's to do with feeling like we overwhelm people a lot of the time. And also we have some envy for introverts who are more able to plan what they're saying and be more comfortable with following through a plan of what they're saying, whereas an extrovert might be more happy with speaking in the moment off the cuff. So I hope that sort of introduces my topic in a little way, right? Those of you who might have something to speak about, Alfred, would you speak about yourself? That'd be great. That'd be really wonderful, right? Sharing life's experience. Ultimately, that's what it's all about, sharing what we have to the wider world and to be mindful. Thank you, Polly. So those of you who feel like you wouldn't necessarily have something to say straight away, right? Let's have a think about that. And I'll hopefully give you some pointers and some tips from my point of view as to how to go about finding what it is that you would really like to share as your message. Now, those of you who might have too much to say, right? That's also a very, very good thing. And we want to try to help you to channel all of that to at least one or two, at most one or two core messages. All right. Now, the next thing I'd like to start with is to talk about two mnemonics, two acronyms, if you like, because they are both acronyms, that will help us to get on with gaining some knowledge today, if that's all right with you. So my first mnemonic, or we call that acronym, is FEARS, F-E-A-R-S. We can all spell that word. Yeah, can't we? Now, the first letter of that F, talking about fears. Many people, excuse me, are of the opinion or of the impression, or they've been told, or they've bought the idea that public speaking actually is a very, very scary thing to do. And if you pop in the messages or in the chat, whether you've bought that perspective, I'd really appreciate it. So just put yes or scary. Thank you, Wei-Chun, F-E-A-R-S. Yes, public speaking is one of the scariest things you can do. If you agree, please pop that in the chat, because that is a major, major myth that there is, okay? Public speaking in itself is something that in terms of phobia, it's called glossophobia. And actually glossophobia, as I have studied during my 20 years at Temasek Poly, 10 being in charge of public speaking, was that glossophobia is actually made up of many, many different states. And I'm not going to call them fears, simply because they're not necessarily fears. Anxiety generating, thank you very much. Glossophobia, or the fear of public speaking, actually is a combination of different, thank you, Polly, different states, some of them being fear of rejection. We know that one, right? Fear of what other people might think. There's also the fear of being corrected. And there's a good mental reason behind that. And I believe that our mind only ever wants to help us. There's the fear of our bodies giving away, or it's our body language, perhaps knees knocking, or I used to play with my hair all the time when I was speaking in public, just purely, we call it stimming in certain spheres. and various other fears. I won't tell you the whole list of 13. That would be another talk all about all in itself. So essentially, we have these different states that we use the word fear to encompass. And that actually is, thank you, Richard, that actually is a misnomer because they are not all fears. Now, the word fear in itself is alarming, isn't it? So let's break them down and talk to them as to what they actually are, which is just a fact of inexperience or lack of practice, lack of exposure in the right context, okay? So we're then going to move to E, which is expired beliefs or expired experiences, whereby things from the past might influence how you go about something now. Now, it looks like I can only cover these 2 or 3. That's fine. Expired experiences might be, for example, when my students used to come to class and say, cha, 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 I cannot do public speaking. My English, no good one. You know, I'm still in Singlish school, so excuse me, I am Singaporean, but I didn't learn English in a Singaporean context. That aside, what is it exactly that's holding you back? And what we call in hypnosis is something that needs to be updated and upgraded. Is that still the case? Is your English still at the standard that it was at when your teacher told you your English was not good enough, perhaps, to give a speech with? All right, that probably isn't the case anymore. And it's probably an expired belief or an expired informed decision that your body made and your mind made to stop you from doing something at the time that would have been scary. I'm going to move on to A, and that is for aversions. What is it that we just don't like it? What is it all about? You know, are we just averse to getting on stage or speaking in front of people nowadays with Zoom and everything? What are we averse to speaking to a group of people, perhaps that you can't see their faces, you can't see their reactions? For an extrovert, that is a little bit off-putting for me because, as the previous speaker mentioned, we like to get the feedback from the audience, right? So that indicates a lot of things. And so what is your aversion towards public speaking? Third one, rapport. How do you create the rapport, the relationship with the audience? And finally, S is stress and stuff, whereby it's just our own stuff that just needs to be gotten rid of. And we can do that with training, as Mervyn very rightly told us about networking. That's absolutely correct. Thank you so much. So the long and the short of it, thank you so much for the notes, Richard. F for fear, are they really fears, or can we really break them down into those elements? Expired beliefs, adverse reactions, perhaps, that could be turned into some reframes, right? For example, so when we have an adverse reaction to something, like we can remember the fact that it's been proven scientifically that nervousness is just 1 or 2 steps or states away from excitement. So you can ask your body, are you feeling nervous or are you feeling excited? And your body will naturally respond to which one it is. And if you're nervous, then it's just trying to prepare you and warn you that you need to do something before you can feel happy doing the thing that you're planning to do. I hope that makes sense. Rapport is your relationship with the audience, and stress is the stresses that come with it. And that stuff that we need to get rid of in order to, just through training or through experience, be able to handle the situation. And I want to love you and leave you and carry on with our little activity. After we carried on with our little activity, to just say that all around Singapore, there are 230 odd Toastmasters clubs. I'm going to type that into the chat box. Toast as in toasted bread, toast box. And many of them people would have attended, but some of them are really, really welcoming, and some of them are really very, very suitable. So different clubs of different club cultures, they are suited to different kinds of people. So I'm going to wrap up there, and my call to action is to contact me if you'd like help with your public speaking, and to just remember that fears can be expired beliefs, it can be adverse reactions, and lack of practice, for want of a better word, right, to create rapport with your audience, as well as outdated stresses. So that's very good. Yes, go ahead, join the Toastmasters Club. Mine personally is called Advanced Toastmasters Club. I'd like us to move to an activity, if we may, and this is using acupressure. Okay, not acupuncture, because we don't use needles. Acupressure, and this is self-help. We can use it ourselves anytime, any day. Now, if you're feeling anxious at all, the thing to do is to hold your thumb, and you just hold it as if you're holding somebody else's hand. That sort of pressure, that sort of, as if you're holding onto your child's thumb, or your husband or wife's thumb or something like that, right? You can hold somebody else's thumb. You can hold your own thumb to help anxiety. Either thumb is fine, whichever one you go to. Thank you, Wei-Chu. Appreciate it very much. And that helps anxiety in any shape and form. It's connected to the, thank you, Shirley, I'll write that in a second. It's connected to the stomach and spleen function energies, which help to alleviate and harmonize anxiety. Okay, the next one we move to is the index finger. The index finger helps us to harmonize fear. So if you're holding your index finger, just like we did with the thumb just now, same kind of pressures you use if you are holding your partner's hand or something, exactly like that. Either hand will do, it's fine. Holding the index finger just like this, just like wrapping, that's fine. You might choose to, you might choose to hold one phalange, doesn't really matter. The intention is what counts. And that helps us with any fear, any actual phobia, which for me is something that is presenting imminent and immediate danger. All right. Or any of the actual phobias, like phobia of heights, phobia of spiders, for example, you can hold your index finger. So anxiety is different because anxiety is not something that is presenting itself in the present moment as it is. Okay, so even if you're in the middle of giving a speech and you begin to start fearing that the audience is not with you, you can hold your index finger. Nobody will be any the wiser. You can do this in meetings, on the train, any way you like. It can be preventative as well as in the moment. Now, the third finger is all to do with anger. Okay, the spectrum of anger. And again, you're wrapping it just like you would hold somebody else's hand or your own. And this is on the spectrum of anger and motivation. So anger and motivation are on the same spectrum, just like anxiety and self-love are on the same spectrum. If you'd like to be able to love yourself more and be able to appreciate yourself more, then hold your thumb. The fear finger will help you to be less afraid, obviously, and more confident. The middle finger for anger and to get more motivated, which is wonderful. And we all know what putting up the middle finger means, right? That's all to do with anger. Touch on that too much here in polite company. The ring finger is all to do with sadness or loss. Okay, so if you're feeling sadness or loss or not good enough, like something is missing, then you'd hold your ring finger. And our next book in the series is called Sadness and Us. So hold your ring finger, similar to how we did the other one. And how long we do it for, that your body will know when to let go. Your body knows when to let go. Okay, perfect. And the little finger is most important for what we call trying to. Okay, when you're trying to be something, trying to, get to know people, trying to put on a mask of perhaps being interested when you're not. And the other tip I have to say is you have to be interested in order to be interesting. Listening comes before speaking, comes before reading and writing, right? Yeah. So yes, not only am I president of Emmaus Catholic Toastmasters Club, but I'm also the founder and vice president of the Advancity Toastmasters Club. And that one is really welcome to everybody, all kinds. We have a very unique club culture. I'd be happy to talk about that if you'd like to email me, that'd be great. So we've done all 5 fingers. And again, you can do them anytime you like. And the way you remember which is get rid of worry, aka anxiety, that's the thumb, right? F for fear, A for anger, S for sadness, T for trying to, or pretense, or inauthenticity. If you're ever feeling it cannot be yourself, 100%, you're being inauthentic, or you're having to try and strive to be someone you're not, put on a confident, brave face, for example, then you'd hold the little finger. Okay, there's plenty more to say about that. I'd love for you to get in touch with me so I can tell you more. Call to action, please join Toastmasters. Or come and see me for some help, because I use my therapies to help people get over their fear of speaking. All right, thanks ever so much. I'll hand you back to Wei Chun. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I love your finger holding yes activity. It's really very soothing to the body. I
Is
really
that?
I find that yes, our body can tell that how is our emotion, and then the fear, like what have Caroline have explained to us in public speaking. Thank you so much. Yes, Caroline, there's a quick question, a very important one. That there's this question asking, why is the public speaking in physical presence? Okay, more nerve-wracking than Zoom or any virtual platform?
I love that question. Thank you very, very much. I'm just popping that open to see. Right. Thank you, Kaiwan. Public speaking on Zoom is less nerve-wracking. Now, Rachel, thumb is for anxiety or worry. Okay, so public speaking on Zoom, less nerve-wracking. Kaiwan, do you identify more as an introvert or an extrovert? Okay, now for me, I love Zoom. I had to learn to love Zoom because for some reason, I've got very thick skin when it comes to public speaking. Maybe it's because of my neuro wiring that I have, but I've always loved to talk and not to speak. And I love languages. I may not have mentioned that I was a French and German teacher as well as at Temasek Poly as well. Now, yes, for Zoom and live public speaking, it is more nerve-wracking simply because you can see more of the body, right? And people have been told for years and years, and a lot of feedback, use all the stage, make eye contact with everybody. You've got all those extra things going on in your mind that you don't have in a Zoom context.
Ah, I see.
But then again, for somebody who's like myself, I love the feedback from the audience. So I love the fact that I can see people nodding, or I love people shaking their head, or maybe looking like this. I can tell if people are looking bored, and I can adapt my speech accordingly. That maybe according to levels of experience or levels of engagement, but that's a different thing. I would peg it to introversion, extroversion as well. And also to the fact that I do speak about this a lot, and I'm researching it a lot. Very glad to have gone after Mervyn, who spoke about introversion. But in the main, introverts have a great advantage when it comes to public speaking. If anybody can pop that in the comments, please do. What would be the massive advantage that introverts have over extroverts in public speaking? That's my question for you guys. And if we can give you a virtual prize, that would be great for answering that. Okay,
Yes.
I think I mentioned it earlier on, possibly. Okay.
Yes, thank you so much, Caroline.
Yeah, so that in a nutshell is what it is. But I've learned to love Zoom because I've learned that seeing myself is a great educator for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes,
Welcome.
thank you, Caroline. Yes, let's have our third speaker, and he's Mr. Ricky Lau, founder, Nation for Future for the Seniors. Mr. Lau is a lecturer on digital marketing. He advocates tuning untapped assets of the seniors, such as knowledge, experience, network, and time, into productivity use through a mindset change. He will share with us today on the values of speaking and community. And this is based on his robust, strong experience with our seniors from many walks of life. Over to you, please, Ricky.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to share some of my experiences with the audience. Okay, so after listening to the speaker on networking and the public speaking, I think now is the time we utilize those two skills to bring some impact to the community, and let's bring some sunshine to seniors and also to the entire world. Okay, so give me a few seconds. I'm going to share my slide. So go to my split screen, share screen, and I'm going to share it. I'm sorry, let me stop sharing it again. I forgot to do something. Share computer sound, optimize screen, share it. Okay, here we go. So this is me. I call myself Sunshine Senior because I founded a community called Sunshine Senior. So I'll be sharing my journey and how are we going to gather the wisdom of senior as a community to bring some impact to the society. Okay, so one voice can change the world, right? This is something that I would like to share. Okay, sorry, let me adjust a little bit on my screen. Some of the thing is blocking me. Okay, here we go. One voice can change the world. Now, what do we mean by that? Mala mala. right, is the teenage girl who really advocating one child, one book, and deliver speeches at the United Nations, and the world is listening and hearing. Another teenage girl talking about the environment, talking about the climate change. Right? So these are the voices. So that even though they are under 20, but one voice being heard in United Nations, being covered by the news media, and they are doing
Okay, folks,
something
should we go?
to change the world. Okay. So
People?
look at the other one is talking about the Barack Obama, talking about quote, one voice can change a room. And if one voice can change a room, well, then it can change a city. If it can change a city, it can change a state. If it can change a state, it can change a nation. And if it can change a nation, it can change the world. Your voice, I mean our senior voice, can really change the world bit by bit, step by step. Okay? So your voice can bring changes too, but how are we going to do that? Well, let me share with you some thoughts. So lend your voice, right? We have a voice here. We have to lend it out to help ourselves, also to help people around us. Now, if everybody can lend their voice, the power of the voice, it's amazing. So how do I create a voice for myself, right? So I just want to share a journey that I have been embarking and see if that brings some value or references for your consideration. Okay, so I created Sunshine Senior as a community, trying to gather the Sunshine Senior together to talk, to connect, and try to do something for the community. Now, how are we going to do that? We have some pointers, and I will share it later. So I participated in project. Now, one of the ways that we're talking about networking earlier, right? So one of the things is in my cases, I would not reject any invitation to participate in meetings, in project, or even in project that I really don't know. Now, that's when you're talking about Google Box. I've never seen a Google Box before. I really did not know what that is. But hey, I was invited then, go out and meet with the young people, meet with the project organizer and participate at a very good time. So one thing is, whenever you got an opportunity and if you are free and if you have time, my suggestion is just go and have an open mind, talk to people, because you learn about networking skill, you learn about the public speaking skill, right? So we are equipped to do that. I organized a dinner in the air using the online tool during COVID. I was involved in a ping pong playing group on every Saturday. Because of COVID, we really could not play ping pong. Now we can, right? Because of the losing up until phase 2. So after ping pong, we normally went for the lunch at the hawker center, at the restaurant, but we missed that. So I said, why don't we do this one? So I organized what we call a dinner in the air. Now these are my ping pong gang. Right? So we say, hey, this is the chicken rice I'm eating. This is the mushroom rice I'm eating. I'm holding my beer. So we had a fun time in the evening from 8 to 9 and on a weekday. I also gave public speech and I said, whenever I'm honored to be invited to deliver some speech and sharing experiences, well, I will go and try to contribute to the society. I also produced YouTube program. That is a program I recommended to SUSS, talking about, hey, why don't we meet the gerontology student and the senior together and see what they are studying. Is it really actually the needs of the senior? So we got the 3 YouTube programs. And if you log on to YouTube, just search Wiki FM Law, you'll be able to see all these 3 videos. Okay, so a community partner of SUSS Gerontology program, that is the Sunshine Senior. And now I have a chance to share my journey with you. Now, talking about going into impact, so how am I going to do that? And hopefully you will see value and join me. So some of them will say that, hey, I do not know digital, I'm no expert, my communication skills are not so good. Should be good now, right? After listening to networking and the public speaking. So there are quite a number of emotion that, oh, I'm not going to do that. I'm not good, I'm not educated, I really don't know this, I really don't know that. Hey, let me show you 2 slides and see whether I can change your mind on that one, and use your voice and use our voices together to bring some changes. I'll recommend a action and see whether it is agreeable to you. Okay, give me 3 minutes and see whether this will change your mind. Now I'm doing public speaking now. I set myself for 3 minutes doing public speaking, and see whether I can change your mind and be more active, and then join us. Okay, starting now. Ding. Okay, who are we seniors? Are we expired milk with a expiration date, or are we vintage wine? The aged, the better. Well, use the chat. Just type in 1. You feel that you're an expired milk, so that, well, we are expired, we don't have value. Or 2, we are vintage wine. The aged, the better. When you talk about wine, you share, you have fun. Okay, do it in the chat. Just type in 1 or 2. I'll come back later to see how many regard yourself as 1 and or 2. Okay, I'll come back to it later and checking on the result. But please, during my presentation, do come in. 1, expired milk. 2, vintage wine. Now, to my observation, seniors at 4X, irrespective of how old you are, your education background, your seniority, or the kind of job that you did before you retire or from work, right? We have knowledge, we have experience, we have network, we have time. In the last 20, 30 years, no matter what kind of job we are in, right, be it a cook, a chef, a CEO, a senior manager, we have the knowledge of that particular field for 20, 30 years. Experience, well, we have encountered up and down, we have encountered joy, we have encountered kind of sorrow, right? Network. With 1 phone call, we will be able to help. Give you an example. One of my ex-colleagues, and then she's pregnant, and doing in the temporary stage, and then transforming into a full-time. So she called me and said, Ricky, I don't know how to talk to my boss. He would talk to me with talking about turning me into a permanent, but I don't know whether I should tell him that I am pregnant. She had too many bad news about being pregnant, and then I got fired. I said, hey, I'm no HR expert, but give me some time and I'll call you back. So I called my ex-colleague, having 15 years HR director in the Asia Pacific. So I connect those 2, and my ex-colleague called me back in 3 days and Ricky, thank you. I said, what? He said, well, everything is done because my HR director colleague culture, what to do, how to say, right? So everybody is happy now. So we need to apply our knowledge, experience, network, and time. It doesn't matter what job we did, we have all these. Okay, so how are we going to do that? Turn idle time into productivity. But when you say productivity, that means value. Okay, but how are we going to do it? Small solution, big impact. We are seniors, we really don't want to go out and compete too much. So we're looking at small solutions which we can do and generate big impact. I'll give you one example after a few slides. And better, we work on pleasure, not pressure. Okay, now as seniors, we have a privilege to choose something that we like to do. When I'm 30 years old, I can't. I need to really pay my school loan. I need to pay my family. I need to do this. I need to do that. I need to pay my mortgage. I cannot work on pleasure. I work on pressure. Right now, we can. So our ABC is add value to each other's life. We bring sunshine to society. We connect and integrate. With all these, then we come together to look at small solutions, big impact, work on pleasure, not pressure. And silver voices can bring sunshine to senior and people to the world. Now come the best part. Right? How are we going to do that? Right? You've been talking about these things, but it seems that they're a little bit trivial. So what are we going to do? Well, let's create a voice together. We need to find some project, right? Here it is. So when you look around, all the telco in Singapore really pushing out packages for senior. Well, look at all those beautiful senior, active senior, looking at mobile, that kind of thing, right? So the question to me is, do they really understand who we are? Do they really know what we want in terms of Wi-Fi? Do they really know their plan really suit us? They may or they may not. I come from a corporate world, right? So that is what we can do. So why don't we gather together and look at the plans together, and we come up with a plan of our own, saying that, well, this is the plan, the digital plan that is really good for seniors. Right? This is all we want. I don't want you to give me any other thing. I don't want to buy an iPhone. I only use 5 features, but you charge me for the 20 features inside an iPhone. No, I don't want to do that. So one of the things is, if we now, you will be asking, right? If we come up with such a plan, will they listen? Well, brands do. I come from a marketing background. But Donald, you asked, we listened. Paper straws will be rolling out to all UK restaurants from this September. They are using plastic straw, but there are enough feedback to them saying, hey, plastic, you're really damaging, you're really ruining the environment there. So they say, okay, I listen. We'll be changing to paper straw. Small solution, well, big impact. Tesla, can you guys program the car once in park to move back the seat and raise the steering wheel? Steering wheel is really wearing. Well, the head of Tesla, Elon Musk, good point. Well, we will add that to all cars in one of the upcoming software releases. So they do listen. Now, if I were one of the telco, if we provide come up with a Wi-Fi plan or digital marketing plan for them, saying that, well, that is from the collective wisdom from the community of the senior. Why would they not accept it? Right? Because when they launch it, they are guaranteed of a senior subscriber, and that package will be as good for the senior community. Not really looking at research paper, 5-pager thing, their brainstorming section, and all that kind of thing coming up with a package for seniors. But due respect, I respect those, right? Their efforts are worth mentioning. But if we can do this one, well, you can come down and have a chat with me. I have a co-working space at Tanjong Pagar. So I've allocated 3 Wednesdays, November 11, 18, and 25th, from 3 to 5 p.m. So if you're interested, I shall meet you, and I have a chair and the coffee and thing. Then we brainstorm, okay, we take a look at those few programs. So which is not really conducive to that, which is not what we want. Of course, they want to make money, but we want to come up with a package, affordable, and most important of all, the content really cater to our need, not to their need. Right? If we can find a middle ground, if they say after a few meetings, after a month or 2, we can come up with that, well, that is small solution, big impact, and that will be sunshine to seniors and to all the telcos. Okay, so that brings an end to my sharing. So I would like to, I'm interested to see how many ones are there, or how many twos are there. If the team can help me out. Is there any response to that?
Yeah, I think Ricky, just
Yes.
yeah, I think overwhelmingly is a lot of tools.
Yay! I love that. I love this. I love this. Yeah. So what does it mean, right? If we think we a lot of tool and the vintage one, we need to act out, not really think, right? It's action. Action brings change. Action brings happiness. Action brings connection. I'm glad that most of you feel that you're a vintage one. We have value. The aged, the better. And please move forward and have action. If you're interested, join me. Okay, I'll stop here with my presentation. Thank you so much.
Okay, Ricky, there's a request. I think just now you mentioned about the ABCD.
Yes.
Yes, could you bring out that slide, please? I think some of the attendee, the participants, would like to make a record of that.
No issue. That is the one.
Yes.
ABC.
ABC.
Add value to each other's life, bring sunshine to society, connect and integrate.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. And then there's also a quick request. If they'd like to join you in Tanjong Pakat, how are they going to let you know they're coming?
Well, John Sunshine Senior, promotion time. John Sunshine Senior Facebook page. We will be sharing the detail beginning of next week.
Sure.
Sorry, I have to do some promotion.
No problem. Maybe you could give us our National Library Board the link. Then we can
I will.
the participants.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Mr. Ricky. Let's move on to our fourth speaker. We have a very distinguished speakers, two more to come. Okay, our fourth speaker is Ms. Madeline Collin, founder, Purpose-Driven Projects, an expert on air. Ms. Collin supports business leaders and experts to succeed and accelerate their businesses by developing value connection to become leaders in their field or industry or any niche that they may have. She believes entrepreneurs will make the change in the world that we want to see and need, okay, to make the change. That's why she's committed to supporting and connecting entrepreneurs to empower the change that they are going to bring forward. Today, she's sharing with us how to start your podcast. Okay, Madeline, please.
Thank you. Thanks for the introduction and hello, everybody. I am dialing in from Melbourne, so a little bit later in the evening for me, but good afternoon to everybody there. I am going to share my screen and make sure you can see my slides. Just bring those up. Thank you to everybody that's shared so far. I'm learning so much, so I'm really excited to be part of this. So yes, I am going to talk to you about leveraging the power of podcasting and talk about what is podcasting and how you can find your voice using podcasting as the platform. So a little bit about me. I am the co-founder of Experts on Air podcast booking agency. I'm also a podcast host. My background is in project management, and so I spent 25 plus years in project management in corporate. I'm now a connection and collaboration expert, so I love how some of the other speakers have been talking about connection and collaboration and networking, which is great. A business coach and mentor and a global business accelerator facilitator. So a few things. The first thing I want to touch on is just about the power of podcasting. So we all know the iceberg. We can just see the tip at the top, but all the magic is underneath. And that's really what podcasting is about. The podcast, when you're talking and speaking to people, is really just the tip of the iceberg, and it's all the underneath, which is where the magic lies. And we'll go through that as we I touch on a couple of things in the presentation. So podcast equals voice activated authority. And what do we mean? What is a podcast? So just for those that are not aware of podcasting or have heard it, but they're not quite sure what it is, it's actually a digital audio file made available on the internet for downloading on a computer or a mobile device. And I think that's really key, is because the growth of mobile devices has seen the growth of podcasting because it's very easily accessible. Podcasts are usually available in a series, and people subscribe to a podcast. When you have a new episode of a podcast, they'll automatically be notified of that podcast episode gone live. The definition of authority is power derived from good reputation, the power to convince people, and the capacity for inspiring trust. So what we want to try and do at Experts on Air, and what we help our clients do, is to become trusted authorities in their industry, field or niche. And the way we do that is about becoming more connected and being a trusted authority. And we are using podcasting to do that. As you seniors wanting to share your voices and become that trusted authority in what industry, field or niche or area of expertise do you want to start having a conversation and have your voice heard, is something to think about. And I'll pose a question later on in the presentation so that we'll get you thinking about that. So the power of being a trusted authority is that your name speaks for itself. And what we're trying to to do here, and we use podcasting for, and what you could harness podcasting for is to be known for a certain piece of expertise, or where you want to make an impact, and how people would come to you for that. Rather than you seeking out people, you can kind of flip that switch for people to come to you. The elements that, or the key ingredients to become a trusted authority in your industry, field or niche, or expertise. There's 6 key things that we talk about. The first one is a compelling story. The second one is a clear message, understanding your client, creating some content from that, having a connection strategy. And I really loved what Mervyn was talking about in regard to networking. And again, the connection strategy talks to that, like who are you connecting to? And the last one is interesting as the collaboration currency. So what's your value, and how can you find someone else that wants what you have, and that you can help each other? All of these elements can be done through podcasting. And the most exciting thing with podcasting is that it's storytelling, it's sharing a story, it's a conversation between 2 people or multiple people on a podcast. People can choose to listen in, and a story is not selling, it's sharing your ideas, your expertise, your knowledge, and other people will want to listen to that. So why podcasts? Let's get into some juicy stuff about podcasting. This is a lovely quote from a friend of mine, Molly Beck. She is the founder and CEO of a private podcasting platform, so doing internal podcasting for organisations to communicate to their internal teams. And she said, audio is the happy balance between text and video. People don't like to, want to, or have time to read text. And with video, people don't want to or are hesitant to create them. The great thing about podcasting is it's just talking, and we can all talk, and we're all very good at it. We do it every day. Many people can do podcasting while they're doing other things. So podcasting is really growing in popularity because people can do it while they're exercising, while they're commuting, doing other things, cooking, for example. They're not having to stop and read something, or not having to stop and view something as in a video or reading text. Consumer demand is growing for podcasting. So we've seen in the US that 22% of the population each week listen to approximately, on average, 7 episodes of a podcast. In Australia, that's 15% on an average of 6 podcasts, and that's up from 10% 2 years ago. So it is growing. And also we're seeing that on demand is in demand. So for example, the growth of platforms like Netflix and Spotify. So people want to choose what to listen to and when to listen to it. Podcasting is also a new marketplace. So there's still lots of unexplored space in the podcasting industry. If you compare that with blogs, there's about 600 million blogs, 23 million YouTube channels, but only 1 million podcasts. And they're not actually all active podcasts. So there's lots of space for people to play in podcasting. Podcasting is the new book. Remember the time when people were saying, oh, I've written this book, I'm an author. And people would go, oh, you've got a book. The same response elicits now if you've got a podcast. People's ears prick up and they go, oh, you've got a podcast. You can actually write a book from a podcast. So you can map out your chapters, you can speak those chapters, you can take that audio, you can transcribe it into text, and you can give it to an editor and create your book. So it's a much easier way of writing a book these days, and we naturally speak our natural words as well. And so it's a really easy and a much faster way to write books. But they are the new calling card or the new business card, for example, which a book used to be. They're also the new speaking. You know, our inquiry since COVID and lockdown has really increased because people that were speaking and getting in front of their audience were trying to find a different way to do that because live events were non-existent, and they may come back in some shape or form, but it may take a little while for that to happen. And again, in the same vein, they are the new events. People still want to learn, they still want to hear from people, and they're just tuning into different ways to do that. With events, face-to-face events probably are slow to get back on board. Podcasting is still there and people are tuning in more than ever. Podcasting is also really location friendly, so you can do it anywhere. You can record anywhere, home office, studio or closet, and you might giggle when you say closet, but I do know some people that do record their podcast in a closet because it's good soundproofing. Apparently, I haven't done it myself. You can record when you're out and about, so if you're catching up with someone and you want to interview them, you can do the recording while you're out and about. You may need some special equipment to do that, but it's pretty easy and it's not too expensive. And the last one is minimal equipment. So if I'm podcasting, I use my laptop, I plug in my earphones that came free with my Apple iPhone, and I press record on Zoom. And that's as technical as I get. I haven't had to purchase any microphones or any headphones or anything like that. Again, it's choice, you can do that, and you can get pretty good microphones for under $100, but you don't need any special equipment to start. It's a great way to connect with people. So it's a great way to build a genuine connection with your audience. As I said before, it's about telling your story and getting people, allowing people in and getting to know you. And so in that way you are connecting to your audience. It's a unique opportunity for you to share stories and experience and your wisdom, either sharing yours or interviewing other people and sharing their stories, or having a conversation between two people and sharing both of your experiences is a great way to do it. Connect through conversation is great. You may be able to interact with potential clients or collaborators or partners or people that you want to be involved with or like their story and want to know more, and being able to interact and potentially interview them on a podcast is a great way to do that. And interact with other leaders in your field. So who else is doing great things in the field that you want to be part of, and how can you interact with them? It's a great way to ask them to be on your podcast. No one really ever says no to that. And leveraging other people's networks. Who's listening to other people's podcasts? How can you potentially be a guest on someone else's? Or if you invite someone on your podcast, they're obviously going to share it with their network. And so you get out to more people and you get known across many networks. Also increases your credibility. So you're able to build your trust, your authority amongst consumers or listeners, your audience. And there's so many different people that are listening across different industries that you can build your credibility in your niche or on your area of expertise that you want to focus on, or from your background or knowledge or skills that you want to then utilise and share with others and add value. And as I said, have conversations with key leaders in your industry. If you asked somebody that's kind of well known in your industry, oh, I'd love to have a chat with you for half an hour, you know, would that be okay? Most people would say, sorry, I'm busy. But if you went and said, I'd love to interview on my podcast and still have a chat for 30 minutes, I'm sure they will turn around and say yes. So it's a much better question to be asking people, and you'll get a much better response. You can also create content off the back end of your podcast. You can create newsletters, articles, social media content. This is some of the stuff that we help our clients with. You can transcribe audio into text and video. So you can speak once and create content off the back end. You don't have to do that multiple times, which saves a lot of money. A lot of time, sorry, and you can earn links to your SEO links so that you rank higher in Google, for example. Again, that's you know, some of our clients, we help them do that. The other benefits, as I said, speaking is more natural than writing. Listeners choose to listen to podcasts, which is really interesting. So there's lots of people out there, they want to learn, they want to listen, and they'll go out and find the podcasts that they resonate with. And again, there's lots of space in the podcasting field, and there's lots of variety too. So we have a podcast client that we've helped, and she started a podcast called The Sheep Show, as in SHEEP, as in sheep. And she talks all about how to help first generation farmers raise sheep because they don't know how to do that. So who knew that talking about sheep on a podcast would be so popular, but her podcast is growing great guns, and she's doing really well with it and having lots of fun. Low cost, it costs hardly anything to start a podcast, which is really cool. And yes, anyone can do it. If I can podcast, anybody can podcast. This is really interesting because this is taken from a Nielsen poll that's taken every year. This was from March 2020. And the one thing I wanted to point out was that they are saying that podcast listeners are loyal, affluent, and educated, which means there's people out there that are ready to learn, they're ready to buy, and they're ready to listen. So why not listen to you? So how can we podcast? There's two different ways, again, how we help our clients, but there's two different ways that you guys can all podcast. So you can be a host and start your own podcast, or you can be a guest on other people's podcasts. So as a host, you would choose your topic, your theme, or area of expertise. You would choose the style. So you're going to interview other people. Are you just going to share your content, or are you going to do a mixture of both? What's your strategy? What audience do you want? Who do you want to speak to? And what's your call to action? What do you want those people to do after they listen to you? How are you going to record? Are you going to use Zoom or Zencaster? Multiple different options to do that. You may use Skype. What podcast platform or hosting are you going to use to syndicate? So there's many variations of those. We use Buzzsprout as ours. And then what's your list of ideal guests? Who would you really love to interview or talk to or have a conversation to? As a guest, you want to connect with people. So podcasts are conversational. They're not a sales pitch. It's about having a conversation with someone. It's an opportunity for you to share your story and allow people to get to know you. As a guest, you want to be interested in your host or your audience, because your job as a guest is to add value to that host and that host's audience. And as I said, you want to add value and some more value and some more value. And again, this talks to what Mervyn was saying in regard to networking. It's like give first. You also want to position yourself. So, share your knowledge and you will automatically be positioning yourself as an expert in that industry, field or niche. And again, do your research. Make sure if you are a guest on someone's podcast that you know who you're talking to, you know what that host is about and the audience that they're attracting, so that you know that you are adding value to that audience. So the question I wanted to pose to you all now, if you want to take a couple of minutes, is what conversation do you most want to be part of? So have a think about that. I'll give you a few minutes to ponder. You can put your answers in the chat if you want to share, if you feel comfortable share. You don't have to, but just what conversation do you want to most be part of? What do you want to be most known for? What do you want to contribute? Where do you want to add value? And then if you kind of still thinking about that question and kind of can't think, nothing's coming to mind, what question does everyone ask you, or what do people come to you for help about all the time? Maybe that's your area of expertise. This is what we call in podcasting your topic of influence. This is how you would start thinking about what do you want to talk about, and then who would you potentially engage with, and what potential hosts are out there that you could be a guest on. Do we have any comments in there, Wei Chun?
Yeah, okay, there's a request.
Yes.
Could you, Madeline, share with us that podcast platform? I think there's a slide on that. One of us asking for that.
Was it Buzzsprout? Let me go back. Was it this podcast platform for syndication? Was that what they were asking?
Yeah, podcast platform syndication. Yeah, Buzzsprout.
Yeah, that's right. There's many. So there's Buzzsprout, Anchor, Podbean. There's a whole lot of them. If people have got questions, I've got towards the end on my slide how people can contact me. I'm happy to answer any questions outside of this presentation as well, because yeah, it does get a bit technical. If people got specific questions around that, I'm happy to answer.
Yeah. Maybe you can share with us your contact so that they can get in touch with you. Yes.
Sure.
And moving on to the next speaker, ladies and gentlemen.
Sure.
Yep. This is your path, okay?
Yeah. So I do have an online assessment as well. So if people are not sure whether they want to be a podcast host or a guest, you can go on to Experts on Air /assessment and go and work out which way you want to be a guest or you want to be a host. There's a link to the assessment. This is how you can book a call with me, and this is the website. So they are all the ways that you can connect with me. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Madeline. Yeah. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's have our fifth speaker. Okay, Ms. Evelyn Khoo, founder Aphasia Singapore. Ms. Khoo is a passionate aphasia advocate and the founder of Aphasia Singapore, a non-profit organization supporting persons with aphasia and their caregivers in Singapore. She's an experienced speech and language therapist who specializes in seeing clients with acquired communication disorder. So even if we have a condition, Evelyn will be enlightening us on how to be heard despite the communication and speech difficulty that we'll be suffering. Evelyn, please.
Thanks, Rachel. Thank you so much for having me today. It's really an honor and a pleasure to be speaking on this platform with so many esteemed panelists. And the topic that I'll be sharing today is supported communication. I would like everyone to just shift gears a little bit. I think that there's just so much, a wealth of information from the first four speakers, and it's awesome. I've learned so much from everyone. But in my segment, I would like everybody to just shift gear a little bit and think about communication in a smaller group and in a diet, like between two people. Okay, and I will explain why. It's very much linked to my profession as a speech and language therapist. So first, we're going to start with a video. And as you're watching this video, just observe whether any words are spoken and like, how does it feel? Is this a good communication exchange? So, do you think that conversation between the toddler and the father was positive? You can type your responses in the chat. And did you hear any spoken words being exchanged? So I would say that was a very positive and heartwarming exchange between the two, and there were no spoken words, but what the child was trying to do was use her version of sign language. She's a toddler, she doesn't really know, but what it tells us is communication is really at the heart of being human. And communication or conversation is the conduit or the channel that we use to connect with other people. Hence, communication is really important. And it's the essence of us being human. So what we are talking about today in terms of supported communication is that a successful conversation is really dependent on all communication partners. And why do I say that? Because sometimes in a group setting or even between couples or in a family, one or more parties may have a communication impairment. right? So I would like to invite all of us to think beyond verbal communication. And you know what we'll do today is I'm going to share with you what are some of the communication impairment that we might see around us, you know, even maybe within our families, and what are some of the considerations and contexts, as well as at the end, I will leave you with some tips practical tips that you can do to support communication. So what are some forms of communication impairment or difficulties that you can think of or have encountered? I think all of us probably would play the role of caregiver at some point, or maybe is playing the role of a caregiver now. I saw a comment earlier from one of the members of the audience. What are some forms of communication impairment that you have encountered? Or perhaps you are a volunteer in the community and you have met people who have some difficulty communicating. Thanks everyone for sharing. So I can't really read the comments. Let me see, I'm trying to multitask. But, wait, hang on. I think I just messed up my own screen. Okay. Okay, but yeah, here are the examples of communication impairment. So commonly, we actually see senior citizens having hearing impairment. This is real because my father has a bit of hearing impairment, and it affects communication in the household. It affects the dynamics between my mother and my father. And obviously, some people are born with deafness. And it could also be a language impairment like aphasia. So aphasia is an acquired language impairment, and that's the non-profit organization that I set up to support people who, after a brain injury, actually acquire problems with reading, spelling, finding words, and processing language, so that we can support them, because it's very invisible. They are around us, but we actually don't know that they have this until it's diagnosed by a speech therapist. Or it could be a speech difficulty, what we call dysarthria. This is something that I think the layperson will know as slurred speech. So, you know, like World Stroke Day just passed, and you know, the thing is fast, right? Fast meaning, you know, when you see that the face is drooping, or, you know, the arm is droopy, or the speech is slurred, then you need timely action. So that's like dysarthria. And sometimes it doesn't go away, right? It doesn't go away. So somebody could have speech difficulty in that way. Or it could be a cognitive communication difficulty. This one sounds very complex, very chim, right? But what it means is the judgment and the planning is somewhat impaired. So somebody with dementia would suffer from cognitive communication difficulties due to the neurological impairment to the brain. And many of us are now familiar with autism spectrum disorder. It's you know, for some people with ASD, the communication impairment could be very severe, and they could have no words at all. And made famous by an award-winning movie, Stuttering or Stammering. So this is also some form of communication impairment that speech therapists we see. And voice disorders. So there are famous singers who have suffered from voice disorders. Julie Andrews, Steve Tyler, they have gone for operations to actually treat the voice. But when they were unable to talk, then how, right? And of course, there's also physical impairment like cleft, or even like an injury to the body or the throat area, the lips area after an accident. So these are examples. Another example, which is not an impairment, but very commonly seen in our community, is actually language difference, meaning you meet someone who speaks a different language. For example, maybe you meet a migrant worker. You know, the tips that I give would be practical and useful to some extent. So I would like everyone to consider the context in which we are communicating. When we look at this diagram, okay, so the person who has a communication impairment is the one with the arrows pointing to them. And you see the steps, right? So that's me, like, for example, when I am first seeing them in acute care in a hospital, I am treating them, and I am actually focusing on them, you know, like this is a patient, and this is a person who has a problem, and I'm treating them, right? But therapy and rehab can be a long road, and can take many years sometimes. It can go on and on. So what I do in my training workshops with caregivers and with volunteers, we really invite them to shift their mindsets, and we say, look, the person that you are meeting right now is not a patient to you. he's my patient in the hospital or in my clinic, but he's not a patient to you. He's your family member, he's your loved one. He's somebody that you are supporting in your volunteer role. So let's shift the focus from I to we. So the person with the communication impairment is not the problem, right? And it is the responsibility of everyone around them to learn skills to improve the conversation. So once again, if we look at the person with the communication impairment, is it really his problem that he has a hearing impairment? Did he ask for it, or did he ask to have aphasia? No. And where is actually the problem? The problem is actually with the process of communication, right? So let's look at it as not a personal issue, but let's look at it as a process problem. And when we think of it in that manner, it becomes easier to remove our emotions, especially when you're dealing with a family member, and to try to be logical about the process. And we use these terms with our caregivers. We say it takes two to tango. If this dancing couple loses the competition, it's not really anyone's fault, right? It's actually the two of them, because it takes two persons to tango. And you can replace the word tango with communication or conversation or converse. So we like to use this model to understand communication. So you see the term here, transaction and interaction. I'm going to give an example of, let's say, now I want to go to the bank, right, to have a transaction. And the transaction is I want to deposit money. So that's the transaction. But you see the plus sign and the minus sign. With the interaction, it could actually really skew your experience in the bank. If it is a positive interaction, maybe the bank teller is very friendly. Oh, hi, ma'am, how are you today? And smiley, good eye contact. I feel quite positive. I don't feel like, she's trying to just see me as another person on the street, or she's making me feel very unwanted as a customer. But on the other hand, maybe the bank teller is not displaying a lot of positive vibes or body language and maybe distracted, then yes, I completed the transaction, but was the interaction positive, right? So we like to use this model to explain to our caregivers that we need to see communication in this manner as well. Transaction, meaning the transfer of message, and interaction. So the main challenge when we are communicating with someone who has an impairment is the transaction, because you want to transfer the message. And then let's say, I'm going to use the example of my dad. If he can't hear very well, or he just wants to hear, he's not hearing very well, then the message is not effectively transferred, and therein lies a transaction problem. And if let's say I don't strive to keep the interaction positive, it could escalate to become an argument, right? And we certainly don't want that. It's not good. So what we want to think about is, how do we keep the interaction positive? Because it acknowledges the person with the communication impairment as a competent individual, right? You preserve their ego and you help them to maintain a sense of well-being and worth, which at the end of the day is what we try to tell all our volunteers working with our participants with aphasia, because the impairment can be very severe and it can be very difficult trying to convey even a message. But we say always keep the interaction positive. So when we look at a conversation, it always tends to involve both. It will involve both interaction and transaction. So the thing to think about is, how do we have positive interaction, right? Good vibes. So you can throw out some answers at this point. What do you think would be helpful to create good vibes in your conversation with, even if it's not somebody with a communication impairment? What do you do? So some common answers I hear are smiles, yep, and maybe positive body language. Yes, those are very good. But also let's bear in mind that transactions can be something very basic, like the conversation could be something very basic. What do you want to eat for lunch? Coffee or tea? So that's a very basic transaction. But it could be a very complex transaction. Let's say you are trying to have a conversation with a loved one about the will, or about something like buying a new house, right? How then do we still continue to maintain and balance these two? So we need to always think of it in this sense. There is interaction and there is transaction, and we try to keep both. So here are 5 tips. Obviously this is just a very short 10-15-minute session, so I really truncated it to just 5 tips, and I hope this helps everyone to support conversation better. If you have a loved one who has a communication impairment, or you actually have a friend or just anybody you know who might need this. So tip number 1, don't test them. Okay, you are not a therapist or a doctor, so don't test them. Okay, I'll give you an example. My patient with aphasia tells me, I hate it, sometimes my family members, they ask me stupid questions, and then I ask them, what do you mean by stupid questions? They ask me, what do you eat for lunch? They cook the lunch, of course they know I ate for lunch. Why are they testing me just to see whether I can reply them, right? So that's what he meant by testing. And there's some research done in this area in terms of what is it that persons with aphasia, this is specific to aphasia, but it applies across. Don't test them because they don't see you as a healthcare professional. And it is really so important. The number 1 tip that we tell all caregivers is patience. And of course, it is difficult because as a carer or as a family member, you are there 24/7. But just know that sometimes holding back, even for 10 seconds before you make a comment that might hurt someone's feelings, will really help to improve the interaction of that communication. So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2, okay, maintain good eye contact and allow your lips to be seen when possible. I know this is COVID and it's very challenging. It's also very challenging for us in clinic. We actually have I went to order face mask that has a see-through segment, but sometimes what I do is I will choose to sit further away from my client and remove my face mask, because it really just allows that interaction to be so much more positive. Now with the eye contact, right, it's also linked to the fact that you want to get their attention, right? How many times have you had a conversation with someone, you're talking to them, they're looking away. Imagine this person that's hearing impairment. How will you even establish that they have heard you or that they know that you're talking to them? So it's important to maintain eye contact and, if possible, allow your lips to be seen. And this tip is so important, and we can't stress it enough, which is think beyond speech, right? Communication is so multi-layered. And you can use gestures. So think back to the first video that we watched. The toddler, she used touch and gestures, even though she probably didn't fully understand, but she just wanted to talk to her father. So she gestured so well. And with writing, when we communicate with some of our patients, because they are maybe not able to comprehend language very well, we use a lot of keywording and writing. Drawing as well. So drawing could be in the form of getting them to express. So it doesn't have to be very beautiful drawing, but let's say you are having a conversation about lunch, right? And you even though you tried, you just don't know what the other party is trying to say. Could it be that you pull out pictures from your iPhone, or could it be that you kind of guess that it's something and you write out the responses for him to choose in terms of like a yes, no question, or in terms of like a close-ended, is it chicken rice or fishball noodles, and then let them choose. And drawing, could you give them a piece of paper and get them to express themselves? So really thinking beyond the spoken word to let the other party express themselves, or you using certain methods to communicate what you want to communicate. Tip number 4, slow down. So I tend to talk very fast. So I also remind myself, slow down, and to use a respectful, natural tone of voice. Don't shout, because when nobody likes to be shouted at, and nobody likes to be spoken to as if they are a baby. Even if they have a communication impairment, they are not, they may not be cognitively impaired. They still understand what you're saying. So it's so important to convey good vibes through a natural tone of voice. So tone of voice and volume is actually a different thing, right? So when we talk about the tone of voice, now I'm speaking in the natural tone of voice, but if I raise my volume, I can raise my volume and maintain a smile and not seem too intimidating. But if I shout and I'm stern, that's a different message being conveyed, right? And I think this is where it's so important that we try not to shout at people with hearing impairment because it comes across as you're angry, but maybe you are not angry, right? So this is important. And last tip would be to minimize environmental distractions. Let's say you want to have an important conversation with somebody who may be a bit hard of hearing and the TV is on very loud. Then tell the person, okay, let's switch off the TV so that we can have this conversation now. If it's not possible to switch it off, then choose a time when you can actually have a quiet space to have the important conversation. Well, maybe if it's not important, then it's fine. But if it's important, then definitely you want to have a quiet space to carry out what you want to say and get their attention. How? You know, I would, for example, if I'm talking to my dad and he can't hear me, I will tap his hand, Daddy. Yeah, I got their attention already. I can start the conversation. Yep. So just to recap, the 5 tips are: don't test your loved one, be patient, okay, maintain good eye contact, and if possible, you allow your lips to be read. Even though they may not be a lip reader, it helps to see your mouth. And to go beyond speech, you can gesture, you can write, draw, use a lot of visual aids. Now with technology, it's incredible, it's easy. You don't even need picture cards anymore. Slow down when you're talking, use a natural tone of voice, don't shout. And we minimize environmental distractions by, one thing, you switch off the TV, you switch off the radio, you get the quiet space, and then we get the person's attention from the start. And most importantly, we strive to create good vibes, meaning you want a positive interaction with every conversation. If it sounds very daunting, or if you are faced with a new situation where there's somebody in the family who has a communication impairment now, just know that this is a skill that you can learn and that you can practice. It gets easier and easier, and the communication will get better and better. We have seen it with many of our caregivers. It's tough at first, but it can get better. So be patient and give yourself time to practice these tips. So a very short reflection exercise, okay? Who are your communication partners, your most frequent ones, and when you communicate with them, think of it in terms of the model, the transactional versus interactional model. Try to break it down, okay? And especially if you are facing a situation where you have someone in the family or someone that you know who has some form of communication difficulty, how can you actually make it more interactional as well as transactional? And what are 2 tips that you can apply immediately to your conversation? You can think about it and type it in the chat. Even better, after typing in the chat, you write it down so that you can actually use, just use these tips immediately. So I'm happy to take any questions. And I know this is very short, so if any of you have questions about therapy, speech therapy, or about aphasia, brain injury, acquired communication impairment, I'll be happy to take them. You can write to me at Aphasia SG, Evelyn at Aphasia SG. And if you're keen to find out more about aphasia and acquired communication impairment, look up our website at www.aphasia.sg. We are 100% non-profit and run by volunteers really to support this community of brain injured patients who have communication problems. Yep.
Thank you very much, Evelyn. Yes, your 5 tips are very, very meaningful. There's this question.
Sure, yeah.
In this time of pandemic, and then like France is locking down, just declared over the air.
Yeah.
So what is the most applicable tip that you think will be good for our family and the caregivers and also for our seniors?
So is this question specific to online communication? Or
No,
are they
in your family, yes.
family? Yeah. I think, apart from the 5 tips, certainly I think if we are talking about communication, I would say, well, importantly, spend time, stay in touch. Definitely try to stay in touch. So during circuit breaker, so I can only relate it to myself. During circuit breaker, I was actually not staying in the same household as the rest of my family. So I taught my parents how to use video WhatsApp call. They are very low tech, very, very low tech. So we started to use video WhatsApp. So on their end, I had to really give them step-by-step guidance. Do this, go to this app, do this. Okay, I call you now. You just have to press this button, pick up, and then we can have video. So that was something that really improved the quality of our conversation. So it's just nice being able to see the face. I haven't been able to teach them how to use Zoom. I think that's a bit too much, for them. But yes, I would say use the current applications that you have and make it a point to stay in touch. Yep.
Sure.
Yeah.
So when you're coaching your parents, so basically you're making a line call and
Yes.
they are having a mobile phone.
Yeah. So I started with just a line call first. Line call
Yes.
to tell them step by step first. Say, I'm going to put down this phone and then I'm going to do a call, a video call. Okay. All you have to do is just press this button and then it'll be okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So we tried and error a few times. Definitely trial and error a few times. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I see quite a few questions coming in. Yes, last slide, definitely. Yeah, let me flash the last slide again. This one, I think it's a question about this reflection exercise. Yeah, I think, tips are tips, but importantly, if you can apply them, that will be really useful. Yeah. There is a question, let me see, there are quite a few questions actually. What are transactional versus interactional? So, Hun Hui Chuan, yes, transaction would be the message that you want to bring across. So, for example, if you are talking to someone, the transaction, you want to find out what is the food that they want for lunch. The message you want to bring across is, what do you want for lunch? What do you want to eat for lunch? But interaction would be the things that you cannot see. So the feeling that the person get, and usually these are conveyed through the non-verbals. And I used the example earlier of going to the bank, because you're going to the bank to complete a transaction, but you could leave the bank feeling that it wasn't a very good experience, right? Because the salesperson, the bank teller didn't make you feel good. Yeah. Okay, there's more questions actually. Oh, sorry. Yeah. I'm going to stop share and
there's a last question for you, Evelyn. So through your experience in taking care of aphasia patient and the clients, what do you think that they like to communicate the most beyond their basic needs?
I think actually persons with aphasia are just like anyone else. They have many things to share. Unfortunately, due to the language impairment, they have lost words for many things. So what we try to do to support the communication is to use a lot of visuals, because the vision is not impaired, right? So what we try to do is to first find out the topic or the theme that they are most interested in, and then from there we can zoom it in, right? So we can't be there's so many things that we can talk about, but we first try to narrow in on a theme, and then from there we can try to find the pictures or the resources to support the conversation. Yeah. Some topics are more difficult than others because it's very abstract. So when we talk about things like emotions are very hard to convey even with pictures. That's very tricky. But concrete things like food, like where do you want to go, these are quite easy. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Yes. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
And our marvelous panel of speakers. Let me quickly summarize what we have learned from them. From Mervyn, we have learned how introverts, and especially the communication type, the networking style, that how we are able to create an impact. From Caroline, we have found our authentic voices. She has shared with us some skills, the feels, and then the finger holding methods. Okay, holding our 5 fingers so that we have a better voice and more self-confidence. From Ricky, He has expounded on the value of speaking and how to interact with the community through the nation of seniors. Madeline has shared with us how to do podcasting and the exact technical tricks and the strategies that we can use. From Evelyn, that we have just last heard, is the facial communication and speech difficulty and the tips that we have learned from her. So with this, we have come to the end of our speaking session today. May I invite each of the speaker to say just a few words to wrap up your thoughts and share a main takeaway that you like from our panel of speakers and the participants in this session. Yes, Mervyn, would you like to share, please? Mervyn?
Hi.
Yes.
Yes, which one was that question again? Sorry.
So yeah, would you like to share any main takeaway that you like to give to our participants and the speakers?
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate that the committee put the 5 topics together, and they kind of just connected. You know, there were small overlaps, but kind of connected. So I thought that was very nicely weaved in there. And of course, I appreciate the sharing by all of them. And podcast was especially helpful to me because I'm very reluctant to have myself recorded, whether it's audio or video. So I probably will connect with Melanie later on. In fact, I heard Caroline also wanted to connect with me because she can focus on the introvert. So I thought that there was a learning between us, and it's really great. You know, at my age, you know, we're still learning new things, so it's really good effort by the committee. Thanks so much for having us.
Yes, thank you, Mervyn.
Happy birthday, yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. Okay, Caroline, are you with us? I think she's in transit, yes, to another place. What about Ricky?
Hello, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity again.
Wait for us, please.
Okay, one thing, right? Because when I have a chance to see the chat, so we are all vintage wine. So what vintage wine we need to share. We need to take every opportunity. So when there's an invitation coming in, as I shared earlier, my suggestion, take it. You may not know the people, you may not know the place, but take it. I mean, what is the loss? You go there, if you don't like it, 10 minutes, you go. But if you do not go, then we are kind of confining our own network to a smaller network, and we don't go and reach out to new people and see new opportunity. We don't need to agree to everything, but just share the mindset. We are vintage wine, going out, value, we share, we'll enjoy. That is the thing that I just want to share with the Sunshine Seniors. And thank again for the National Library and SUSS for the opportunity. So that's it.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, Madeline?
Yes, so I would just,
yes.
Yeah, I would just encourage everybody to join the conversation. So listen to podcasts. Which podcast do you like listening to? Could you join the conversation? Connect with the host, ask if you can add value, or find the topic of conversation that you want to be part of and join in, and just have a go and have fun.
Sure, thank you so much, Madeline. Okay, and Evelyn, please. Any main takeaway?
I think it's such a wonderful session. I have learned so much, and I want to encourage all the audience here. I know many are senior citizens who are in to learn more. Please, just get out there and network, and also apply everything that you have heard from the speakers. I think we will all come together to make Singapore such a wonderful place, because I truly believe that each and every one of us plays such an important role in this community. Yeah. So yes, I would love to hear more from seniors. I think Ricky's initiative is so wonderful. Yeah, even I feel like joining the Sunshine Seniors.
We should also sign up for it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have Caroline back. Yes, Caroline. Yes, any main takeaway for us? Main takeaway, yes, for today's session.
Absolutely. So yes, folks, go ahead, do your speaking, do your podcast, network, and communicate with each other. I think, Evelyn, that was amazing because we also need to get used to changing abilities for communication. I'm dealing with that with my mom and aunties and and yes, it's been a really enriching session. Thank you, Ricky. That was super, super enlightening. Thank you, Melanie. I do some podcasts, but your value add was tremendous. And of course, for introverts, yes, we need to work with introverts to help them to be able to understand that they are also extremely wonderfully highly potentialed. That's a new word in public speaking and speaking in general, because all
Thank
good
you,
public
Kelly.
speaking
Yes,
relies on good private thinking. Thank
yes.
you.
Really a big thank you to all our esteemed speakers. Okay, Mervyn, Caroline, Ricky, Melanie, and Evelyn.